Tell your name, who you are.
I'm Scott Mathina. I'm the global community manager, and I'm the U.S. branch manager. So I'm basically in charge of the U.S. for our platform expansion, meetups, and then I travel the world and do meetups also. Right, that's why I'm here. And I've been with the platform for a year, a little over a year, and I've been with the company I got in before the ICO as a community member 15 months ago, and then I was very active in the Slack, and then I got hired to manage the community 6 months ago. So that's how I came into it. And then we have several team members from Korea that are also here in Netherlands. The CTO, my own.
Stand up.
The CTO, he's leading development of the platform. And then we have a trust contract developer, Marshall. And then we have a consensus developer, Charles. And then Douglas is in the back. He's communications and marketing for the platform. And then David, he's also in the community. He's a community volunteer like Walter. And he's from Belgium, if you haven't already talked to him. He drove up like 3 hours just for this.
Oh, cool.
So
I'm going to leave the presentation to you.
Yeah.
And then you can start.
Right. And I'm already talking,
Yeah,
so that's great. So yeah, BOScoin, we're a blockchain platform for public financing, and we'll talk about what public financing means. So the presentation is broken into two sections. One's the business strategy, which is the public financing piece. It's how we're going to drive growth and adoption and partnerships with companies and individuals, developers. And then the second part is going to be more technical, talking about the actual platform and the technologies that are going to drive the actual blockchain. All right, so that's the two different sections. It should be about an hour presentation and then questions for about an hour or however long you have questions. Okay? Yeah, a little bit about the organization of the platform. So, like, they're Korean. It's a Korean. Blockchain OS is the company that is developing the platform, and they're based in Korea, Seoul. We have a Swiss foundation that was established before the ICO. That's managed by a Swiss citizen, Serge, and then Inwan, who's the chairman of the BOS Foundation, and then the CEO. Those are the and we go into that too. So, like I said, Tokenet, we did our ICO in May, right? Pre-sale in January, token sale, fundraiser in May of 2017. And then in October, we released Tokenet, which is a live network that's operating right now. That you can go to the website, you can go to a UI website that actually looks at the Blocktimes, and you can see a live working network. And that's been since October 31st. So you can go to an exchange, you can buy the token, you can accumulate tokens to participate in the network, or in anticipation for mainnet anyway. We have our testnet is going to be released right in June, early June this year, basically in the next month. Our testnet is going to go live, and that's going to be the consensus protocol. And then once we have that live, then our trust contracts, which are our smart contract system, and our governance model are going to be built on top of our testnet. And then once all that is developed, stable, and then we'll release mainnet. And so mainnet will be at the end of this year, quarter four. So November, December timeframe, generally speaking. So there's the first ICO in Korea. That's a big deal in the Korean market. Obviously, about half of the participants were in the Asian market, like Korea, China, and then some in America, but a lot in Europe. So it's really the prominent markets that we were in are like Europe and Asia, and then the U.S. is kind of trailing because it's obviously regulation and everything. All right. I can get my thing going. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the platform, like the organization of the platform. So we have the foundation, right? CEO, Serge, he's a Swiss citizen. And then Inwan, he was the CEO of the Blockchain OS in Korea. And then he stepped to take charge of the foundation 2 months ago. And then our CTO, Yezun Choi, he's the developer of the platform. He's the architect of trust contracts and the governance, and he built the white paper and he was leading development before Minyo took over as CTO. He's the #1 developer. And then obviously we have a C-suite team, security and COO, operations, right? It's a regular company. It's not 2 guys in a dorm, which is unfortunately sometimes what a blockchain company is.
Doesn't work?
No, no. Oh, it's lagging, that's why. There we are. Yeah, it's just my computer. My computer doesn't like my mouse. So, transaction block times, just general overview of the platform as it is like right now in development. Our target, when we initially did the white paper, released it in May, was 1,000 transactions a second. And then we've already exceeded that, and our new target is 5,000 transactions a second, which is 1,000 transactions a second is way more than we need for what we're going to do for our platform. And we've already gone 5 times the capacity of our blockchain network for what we are focused on, which is public financing. Our average block times are 5 seconds. And then, like I said, you can go right now to a website that a community member developed for us, and it's called BOSnode, and you can see the live network, token network. And then all that is transactions. It's not smart contracts or anything, it's just moving coins from one wallet to another. Oh, I see it is. There's a lag. Okay, so I'll work it.
Should I operate the computer? Or
Yeah, maybe you get over it. I don't know what's going on with this.
should I go back? Or?
Yeah, we're here. Go forward. Go forward.
Next?
Yeah, go forward.
This one?
No, go back.
Oh.
Go back. Then we're on this. Yeah, we're on that side. Forward. Yeah. So at Genesis on October 31st, the initial issuance was 500 million tokens, and then our circulating supply is like 444 million-ish, with a max supply of 5 billion tokens over the next 128 years. And that's, next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you have one job.
Yeah.
Operate the computer now, thank you. So, and then, no, go back.
Back?
Go back, yeah. There, okay, yeah, go forward. Okay, sorry.
What do you want, man?
Go forward. Go forward. There it is.
This button, right?
Yeah, okay. So that slide, our commons budget is one of the key members of, let's slip the slide. It's out of place, sorry. Okay. We talk about our initial funding, our initial issuance. This is a slide that depicts that. Right now we're here, 500 million tokens. Genesis block issued. 410 million were allocated during the fundraiser to the community, people that contributed Bitcoin to the foundation to, fund development. And then 40 million for the foundation, 40 million for the team, and then 10 million for bounties, community involvement, and such. 500 million. At mainnet, we're going to have our commons budget, which is like the previous slide, 50 BOScoins per block every 5 seconds for the first 5 years. So 36%, 1.8 million tokens. And communities, the commons budget is a fund that's for application development, public financing, which we're going to go into the fund development, growth, partnerships on the platform. So that's 36% of the total issuance. The freeze reward is an allocation of tokens in a wallet, more than 10,000, and then you get like a small fee for freezing, taking those coins out of circulation. Then you get coins every hour allocated to you based on what you own. And then confirmation rewards, that's the base, the Coinbase, 18 coins per average for the node operators for validating blocks. And that's it. Next one. So talking about our commons budget, what that is, right? It's the Congress members, node operators for our platform, vote on proposals for funding for decentralized applications, for really anything. It could be marketing, it could be you want to develop an application, third-party app, integrate with our network. That's money given to you from our platform to come on board with us, and instead of developing your application on some other platform, on ours instead, to grow the platform. And that is controlled by the community. So it's allocated, one person will vote, which we'll go into, node operators voting on proposals, really trust contracts that are written, uploaded to the network. Next one. So node rewards, right? So 5,400 BOScoins every hour allocated for freezing rewards, which is in your wallet, you freeze them, put them out of circulation, and then you get an allocation. So this is based on 540 BOScoins across the entire network. So however many units are frozen, then your allocation. And then on average, 18 BOS per block. But the way the confirmation rewards work is it's based on, it's a proof of stake system. So on average it's 18, but say there's the total network across the entire network, across all the nodes, there's like 100,000 BOScoins on average. And you own 200,000, they're frozen on your node. Instead of getting 18, you get 36 BOScoins because it's based on what you own and the average across the entire network. So 18 is just the average. 40,000 BOScoins to be a node operator on our network. So obviously if the average is higher than 40,000, then you get less than 18 BOScoins per block that you validate. And because of the proof of stake system, it's a random selection by the network, right? So you get a block, then you get a block for 5 seconds, then it just goes. One aspect to the transactional rewards is 70% go to the network, to the node that validated the transactions on, and then 30% goes to the commons budget, right? For the first 5 years, every block, 50 BOScoins get allocated to the commons budget, and then every 30% of all transactions on the network go into the commons budget. So you get an allocation of 1 million BOScoins over a year, like every month you get your allocation, with the expectation that if your product or service is going to add transactions to the network, 30% of those are going to go back into the commons budget, so that there's funds to fund the next project. And there should be enough funds to allocate. But one aspect to public financing that we're going to get into is if there's not enough funding in like actual coins in the commons budget, then with public financing we can create coins. We can issue additional coins to fund really whatever funding we would need. But that's all controlled by the community, all the node operators. Yep, next one. Is there any questions, Bob? Really? If you save your questions to the end, then we can, if they're not answered.
So after 5 years, what will happen?
Then the funding of the commons budget after 5 years, then it'll just stop, and then the 30% of the transaction fees will go back into the commons budget to keep funding it indefinitely. Yeah, just that initial lump, 36% of the initial 5 billion goes in there to kickstart the funding for the commons budget. So it's in the first year, it's about 1 million, a little bit more than 1 million coins. So it depends on the valuation of the BOScoin. Really, if you need $1 million, USD, then it really depends on what the valuation of the token is, how many you would get on a weekly or monthly basis. And that's really just determined by the trust contract, by the proposal. So it's really just like the business plan, the development timeline, budget, really all those aspects that you'd put into, like if you're gonna go to a VC and you're gonna try and get funding, like that same information basically would go to the community and they would vote for your project, and then it could be funded, and then you develop on our platform, use BOScoins.
Is it a one-off funding or is it like periodic, so that you get?
It's scheduled, so they're not going to give you say $1 million USD. So you would get like every month you would get whatever you would need You said you need $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month. And then it'd be serialized every month. You'd get it, and then there would be oversight. Like you're meeting your timeline that you said. Like when you presented your plan to the community, you said that you were going to meet at 3 months or 6 months. You're going to be here. Then we look at that, make sure that you're meeting your own timeline, and then obviously then we could just like evaluate it. Yeah, you're good. Funding continues. Does it need to be amended? Does it whatever? And then. It's what it is you are presenting it to the community. So as long as you meet your plan that you presented, then funding continues. And that funding would come from the Commons budget for the most part.
Next?
Anything? No? Okay, great. Next one? Yeah. That one's talking about how to be a Congress member. Back one slide. So, like I said, the node operators are actually doing voting, right? So you have to have 40,000 BOScoins. So the one unit on our network is 10,000 BOScoins. And so 10,000 BOScoins you can freeze in a wallet at a minimum 10,000 to get a slight reward, a piece of that 5,400 BOScoins every hour. And then if you want to be a node operator, then you need to have 4 units, which is 40,000 BOScoins. A computer, it could be a laptop at your house, or it could be maybe in a data center, would maybe be better, like DigitalOcean or AWS, so you don't have to worry about hardware and uptime.
That's better, I think.
It is, yes, better. But you gotta say, you can do it at home, Mac or Linux. It's perfectly acceptable. If you don't have really good internet, then you're not gonna be, there's like tiers on the network. And if you have really low latency, then the network's not going to trust you as much. So there's a slight ranking systems. But if you have the coins, you have a good computer with good latency, good internet, and it doesn't need to be like a mining computer, like a Bitcoin miner, or say an Ethereum where you have 7 graphics cards, right? Churning. It can just be a computer with 8 gigs of RAM, laptop, and that's perfectly acceptable because the computing, what you need for the computing power isn't that much. It's enough. I mean, you can't, $200 laptop from a computer store. I mean, it's got to be a decent laptop, but it doesn't have to be overboard, right?
It's only the latency. The
Yeah.
connection you have through the internet and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
fast your upload speed is.
Yeah, it's about latency with the network. So your connection to the other computers on the network. So that's speed. And then having a good enough computer where you can process, right? Because you get say 5,000 transactions and you're validating them. So your computer needs to be good enough where you can validate those transactions fast enough so you're not clogging the network, right? You're not slowing the network down. And then we can get into the consensus protocol, which is going to be a little bit later. So the point is, it's going to be just a regular, like my laptop. I can run a node on that laptop connected to a decent internet connection. And then participate in voting. Yes?
If you want to run 2 nodes,
Yes.
in my case, because I have 80,000
Yes.
can you freeze them all together in one node?
You can.
Then it accesses 2 nodes.
So the way that works is you have 80,000 BOScoins, right? It's based on the average amount. So say it's 200,000 BOScoins. So I don't know what the average is gonna be. But if you look on the network, if you look at it, the average of the average of the nodes of the wallets right now that have more than 40,000 BOScoins, the average is like 260,000 BOScoin for those. I mean, if you take out the ones that are less than 40,000, so a rough approximation right now, at least when I looked at it, was like around 260,000 BOScoin was the average. So your 80,000 BOScoins would be like a third, right? So instead of 18, you get 6 per block that you validate for 80,000.
You can freeze them in one wallet.
freeze them
Or if you want to, if you have multiple nodes, you can do that also. But what you need to do is you have to do the evaluation on, like, you look at the average of the live network, how many you have, and then plug in the algebra, right? Of like the average is this, you have your number, this is how many nodes are on the network, because that determines how many blocks you produce every day, right?
But I don't need two laptops to do that.
You don't. You can do
put
it all
all
in
your coins in
one.
one node.
Yes.
It's the only difference is if you have several nodes, you get more voting rights. So
But
one node,
but not anymore.
Oh, is it not
That's
anymore?
changed.
Oh, okay.
So you're.
Oh, sorry, I'm behind. Okay.
No,
But you
no.
can put all your coins on one node. That's possible.
that's what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah?
What he's saying is, if you read the original white paper,
Oh, sorry,
it
man.
said that they updated it, new technology, so they're going to be updating the white paper to reflect the voting. So the old white paper said that if you run 2 nodes, you get 2 votes in the Congress network, because there's no way to differentiate people. Like, you have 2 nodes, I have 2 nodes, or 5 nodes, and I have 5 votes, or I can have 1 vote. And the amount with the way the math was working for the confirmation rewards, the fee you'd get for validating transactions on the network, if you had them all on one computer and one wallet, you'd have more on average, and you would receive more coins, and you'd have less operating costs, right? So you'd have, instead of 5 computers, you'd have 1 computer, so you have less hardware costs, less, right?
Yeah.
So and then, so you have not the same revenue, but you'd have less hardware costs. But then you could vote if you have 5 computers, 5 nodes. But with the new voting mechanism, the new technology, it's going to be 1 vote per person, right? And we're the only network that's going to be able to do that, because we can say, like, I'm a person, like the network knows that I'm a human being, an individual human being, and I can vote. So it doesn't matter if I have 100 wallets on the network. So if I have 100 nodes, I have 100 wallets, they're all tied to me as a person. So I have 1 vote.
How do you do that? Because
Yes,
I can
we're-
open up the second wallet.
We're gonna get into that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's,
Identification.
we have a encryption technology called homomorphic encryption, and what homomorphic encryption allows is, there's a slide about that, but it allows us to encrypt your information as you as a person, and then you validate yourself on the network, and it doesn't. That information doesn't need to be decrypted by the network. So you take your, say, retina,
Iris.
the iris, yes.
Iris detection.
Yeah, it's iris. So that information from your iris is encrypted on the network, and you would validate yourself.
So it's a
So
requirement that I
you take
give
it-
my identity to the network.
You take your iris. It's not your name, your phone number, your address. It's not that information. It's your iris. So you as an individual, as a human being, is linked to a wallet, which is tied to a node, which is tied to voting.
How do you guys going to be GDPR compliant then on the 25th of May?
The European compliance.
Yeah, GDPR compliant, the new legislation that gets enacted, the Privacy Act.
Iris information. Yeah, we are planning to. Iris information must be submitted to the network, entire network. But it does not mean iris information open to the public. Yeah, it is privacy relation. Yeah, so because to protect our iris information, we use the homomorphic cryptography technology. This technology is very interesting about protect your information. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah. So I don't have a really good answer for you on that,
Yeah.
which is the answer I can give.
Yeah.
But we're aware of that, and I think it's in. I'm going to Korea, and so since the white paper's not out yet, the new one, I can find out
And
for
got a
you.
legal opinion on that,
Yes.
Yeah,
to operate in Europe.
Yeah, we overcome the legal issues. We use homomorphic technology. Yeah.
Yeah. And what homomorphic encryption is allows the encryption of data, also like iris data, iris information. That's where we're starting anyway.
And the data is not stored on one server, you know?
Well, it's blockchain.
It's blockchain decentralized, and the governments don't know how to deal with that anyway at this moment. And it's a Korean-based company at the moment also. So, yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I live in the U.S. and there's a lot of regulatory and compliance issues that that I have to deal with from the U.S. side.
Yeah. From
So
the SEC.
there's lots of you could ask me for an hour about questions about U.S. too, and I don't have any answers about that because we have to work through a lot of these issues. Compliance is huge.
Yeah.
Right. Lots of questions. Yes.
Is it possible to stake on a Raspberry?
The computation isn't going to be enough for that.
It cannot be possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not enough. Like I said, right? You can be a regular laptop, but it needs to have enough computing power to actually validate the transactions. So it'll be really slow.
And,
Yes.
is it in the future possible to do it on Syrian OS, for example?
Yeah, it's Linux. I'm going to use Ubuntu.
Okay.
So CentOS, you said? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could run a node on CentOS or Ubuntu, because they're so similar. Like I know that I could do that. I might have to change some things, but I know we're going to be compatible with Ubuntu because I'll do the patches myself if I have to make sure we're compliant. But they run AWS Linux servers, so I know the client's going to be compatible with Ubuntu, right? Because that's what you guys are running on AWS right now. Yeah. See, so you're good there. And CentOS is pretty close.
Okay.
So
Similar, so
it's similar.
Shouldn't be a problem.
It's Linux.
No. Yeah, it should be fine.
I've used both systems. They're very, very similar.
Most of the POSIX compliant operating system can be possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah. Next one.
Yeah.
So Testnet, early June. So that's going to be, I go back to Korea, and then in the next, say, month, we're going to release Testnet. And that's going to be consensus protocol is going to be released with Testnet. And then our trust contracts, our smart contract system, and our governance model, and home from encryption, iris scanning, voting, like all that is going to be built on top of the Testnet. And then once all those technologies are integrated into Testnet, then by the end of this year, November, December timeframe, CTO's telling me, is mainnet. So that's the estimate of mainnet. But obviously, all the technologies get integrated into Testnet. It's stable. It's great. Then we can release mainnet. If it takes a little bit longer, it may. But we're hoping November, December. Okay, next one. Oh, next one. And then this is going to be, next one. Talking about public financing. This is a business strategy. This is public financing. This is living cryptographic economy, right? Blockchain. By creating credit, using blockchain technology to create credit to solve problems of wealth distribution and then controlling price volatility. So that's a mouthful. So what public finance really is we're issuing BOScoins, right? Creating credit to acquire assets, right? So we're issuing BOScoins to buy hardware, to help companies, individuals create decentralized applications or like hardware or assets in the real world to build on the blockchain or associated with blockchain. Next one.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
To that. Is that financing only related to BOScoin, or is it global financing? If somebody says, I want to set up an, I don't know, computer store, for example.
Yeah, if you, my original understanding of public financing would be if it can be associated with blockchain somehow, if it can benefit the network in some way. There are a couple examples of some simple projects that I've talked to people about, like an ATM, right? You have a crypto ATM that you want to put cryptocurrency ATMs across all of Europe. Okay, well, you would add BOScoin to that network, and then you could get funding from our project through public financing to help make that a reality. And that's money that would be given to you to do that because it would benefit the network. Because it would be really great if we had BOScoin ATMs like all across Europe. Right? Nothing bad about that. So you are a business person, you have the means, you have a plan, you have the means to do it. We would give you the money, we give you the integration tools to integrate with our platform, and then that benefits us. It benefits you because you have helping you further your business, and it helps us because we're integrated with a bunch of ATMs across Europe. That's a guy in the States said that he's got like 100,000. He's got a plan to put like 100,000 ATMs in the States, and I was like, awesome. Talk to me when public financing is alive, and we can help you do that. Maybe not 100% financing because it's only a small part, but that's up to the community. We do a proposal. You have your idea. You can argue it. You can say this is going to benefit the community, the network overall, and then we will issue you the funding through public financing. So that could be not just, it could not be just decentralized applications, which are application-based, but it could be used. The funding could be used for assets, for hardware, for really anything.
As long as people pay with BOScoin.
It would be, we would give you BOScoin, and then obviously you would do with it to fund your operations, however that would be needed. Right? Build a building. One example that the CEO used, the last one was you want to do public financing. You want to shoot a satellite into the space, and so for a global internet that's going to power our network. Okay. Now we're talking about a lot of questions like, is it feasible? Can you do it? Right? But it's like that would totally benefit the network. It'd be real expensive. You'd have to have a really good plan for that. But it's kind of like one of those not outlandish completely, but it's kind of out there suggestions. What's up?
Who's validating these plans then?
So the proposal was submitted to the network. We have a Congressional Budget Office, which is the entity under the foundation that's going to be vetting the projects for whether or not they're doable, whether or not so kind of a cursory. Yeah, this is something we should actually pull forward, and the community would discuss it, evaluate it, and then ultimately vote on it.
Because there's so many different kind of topics you're now pointing to. Is it the knowledge in the company to validate, to have a good judgment of all these projects? It's such a wide range of rockets to ATMs or whatever.
Yeah, so that'd be discussion, and you'd have to basically give the community, global community, the node operators, the information they would need to make an educated decision on whether or not they thought that your project, if you have a project like the satellite project, then you'd really need to prove that that's something that you could really do if we gave you the money to do it. Or it could be a simple decentralized application. Like Walter, he's a developer, he's having a company here. If you wanted to do a decentralized application, he's got the skill base that, it's reasonable to assume that he could make a decentralized blockchain application on our platform. But he's not a rocket scientist. He might, like the satellite thing, maybe he'd need more people. That's going to be education, that's going to be discussion, that's evaluation. And that's going to be in the public, on our forum, through our community, and it's mostly finance-based. And then we're going to go more complicated as we go. Try and keep it simple. So, that's it. Great. So, we're talking about public financing, right? Talking about securing financial sovereignty, and that's what that really talks about is the community is in charge of the funds that would be released to developers, to business people, and then solving wealth distribution, and that's the people that own BOScoin, that operate nodes, that contribute to the platform. The assets, the wealth that's generated from the platform goes back to the community. Right, the token appreciates in value. The tokens are issued out in node rewards. There's the value of the network increases. Public financing puts money into local business people, developers to develop awesome applications, products and services on our network, and then that money increases the value of our network, the real intrinsic value of our network, not marketing hype value, real value. And then that's given back to the token holders, the people, the stakeholders of our platform. So that's really our goal. Next one. Securing financial sovereignty. I kind of talked about this already, right?
Yes.
It's the the financial decisions on the network are determined by the voting people, the node operators, the people who have voting rights. And anyone can have voting rights. You just have to meet the minimum requirements of 40,000 BOScoins and be a human being and have a decent computer with internet. So it's pretty minimal, the requirements. But going back to there's obviously, if someone presents a project that is really out there and they can't prove that they can actually do it, then they're probably not going to get financing. Because I think there's the level of detail, the level of assurance from the community that you would need to actually follow through with a project. You would need to argue that. You'd have to basically prove to the community that you could do what you're going to say you're going to do. But yes.
Yes, and when you think about the future, how many of these projects will be done like daily, weekly? Do you think it's like one project a day that gets the funding, or is it maybe 100 projects?
The expectation, my personal expectation, just looking at what our network is capable of doing, eventually we're seeing hundreds of these are going to be in different stages of development eventually. That's my expectation. Obviously, we're going to start with a couple trial projects. That at the end of this, there's a financing, like a real project with a real company, a real partnership. There's a company called Energy 7. They just did a press release a couple days about where Energy 7 is a Korean-based company. They have an application, and it's like automating gas stations, right? Filling, paying for gas, and it's automation. And they're going to be partnering with BOScoin using public financing within the financing side. And the details on that, I don't have any details because I haven't gone to Korea yet to really get an understanding of all the details for that. But that's a trial project, financing project that we're going to be doing during Testnet to make sure that the public financing piece, the voting, governance, and the details of public financing are actually ironed out during Testnet. And we can integrate those, any changes that may be necessary during Testnet so that we go live with a valid, real, solid, trust contracts, proposal system, and governance system. So it's very much in development. And then there was also another project called BOSsolar, which is a peer-to-peer energy exchange, where say you have a company, you partner with an energy company, like a solar energy company, and you have public financing, would help finance the establishment of solar panels across, like in a neighborhood, in a community, and all the houses would have solar panels on them, and they'd have a box, right, connected to the BOScoin platform, and one house has high energy use, another house has low energy use, and so your peer-to-peer energy exchange using BOScoin to exchange. So all those houses have wallets. And that's another idea for public financing that they're going to be looking at doing. They have a demo of that actual system, right? The box, it's a working system. They just haven't released that out, but it's a part of the public financing initial project that they're thinking about rolling out in Korea. So, that's it. Good. Great. And then, we're talking about wealth distribution. That's what I said, right? The assets, the value, the inherent value of the network is actually given back to the stakeholders, which are the community members. Next one. So this kind of outlines kind of public financing, right? So you present a proposal to the Congress network. A piece of the Congress network is a committee called the Congressional Budget Office, is kind of the working title for the committee that would actually vet proposals to see whether or not they kind of meet muster, right? Are they a scam project? Is this something that would benefit the community? Is this something we should actually push forward to the global community to vote on eventually? So the process is intended to be about maybe a 3-month process where you submit a proposal. It gets vetted by the Congressional Budget Office committee, basically, and then it would go to the community. It would be discussed in the global forum for a month, 2 months. Then obviously the community would, say, evaluate any shortcomings. You go back, you make changes to the proposal, you resubmit it, because I'm sure that's going to happen. And then eventually, after around 3 months, 2 to 3 months, then it would go to the Congress network, all right, using Commons budget. And then public financing is kind of a supplement for the Commons budget. So you have the Commons budget, 36% of the total issuance, right? 1.8 billion coins over 5 years. But if your project is very large, we have 100 very solid, awesome proposals that come through in the first week, then, where's that money going to come from? Well, the Congress could say we only have 1 million BOScoins in the Congress in the Commons budget in the first year, but all the funding for all the projects, the weekly allotments, are 2 million. All right. Well, that additional 1 million could be created to fund the projects moving forward. Right. So you have the allotment that's already set, and then you have additional coin issuance that's possible but not guaranteed. The Congress network can actually vote on that, whether or not they want to create additional coins. So there's this a higher level of certainty about the validness, the contribution to the global network that would need to be met. Right, more coins means more circulating supply, lower price of the token, but the lower price of the token right now, so we can have the price of the total network value higher later on. Right, those are evaluations that people are going to need to make. All right, next one. So we're talking basically about, so Ethereum, smart contract, everyone knows about Ethereum, right? So you have ICO, then they do a project, and there's a decentralized application that is an island upon itself, and then you have another project that is another project, right? Next one. What we're suggesting, what we're proposing, is you'd have our BOS platform, which is our blockchain network, right? And we have public financing. So your public financing is the business strategy for growth, for onboarding developers, new projects, new partnerships, the funding side. And then we have our platform, BOScoin platform. So you have a smart grid project that would be in the ecosystem of the BOS platform. And then you have there's like 3 others. And then you have like maybe an insurance project, or you have a financing project, a bunch of them, and you have all these different projects would be kind of in the ecosystem. And right after this, we go into like technology that makes it so that all these different projects are using a common language, a common elements, common ontology, which is we're going to go into, so that they can actually use parts from themselves. One good example is you have a application that you want to do, say mortgage, like housing, and so you have like an insurance piece, you have deeds, you have the financing, like you have all that like on our platform with trust contracts, with web ontology language, with a common framework for development. Then you can more easily integrate those different elements into your new application based on what other people have done before. Yes?
How does it differ from Ethereum then?
It's different, like Solidity. They use Solidity. We're using a web ontology language and time automated language, which is human readable, machine readable, decidable. So Ethereum is Turing complete, and we're non-Turing complete. Decidable, which we have slides that kind of go into that piece. So we'll
get there.
Yeah, we'll get to the slide. It's a little bit easier if you can see the graphic.
Okay.
Next.
Yeah, next. And then we kind of went out of order, but these are the 2 projects that we have, the initial projects that we're talking about. And I already covered these. Energy 7 financing, gas station application in Korea, right? Is that correct? Yeah. So that's all I got about that project actually. It was in a press release and I haven't gotten any more information on it. And then Boss Solar. Next one?
I have a question about that.
Yes.
If you finance such a project, what's the payment then to the BOScoin out of the project? You know, is it kind of an interest to pay, or is it a dividend payout, or what kind of?
See, I don't have the details on that. I just know that that's a project that they're currently developing on.
Well,
And
in
then,
general, what do you expect out of, what return do you expect from the investments you're making?
right, yeah, do you have any details on that?
Douglas can say.
Yeah, hey Douglas, Energy 7, do you have, he's asking about ROI for Energy 7, what kind of return, what are we talking about, benefits to the network?
That's going to be revealed officially.
Yes.
Still,
See, I don't have any details on that, so,
No, but there must be expectations about the return you make on a project in general, you know, not the specific one, but in the future, what kind of returns do you expect?
well, yes, that's not.
That's all what's about, of course, you know. You
right,
find
yeah,
this,
at the end, those are the
then you get a
details.
return. So what's the return?
Yeah, those are the returns, and I mean, I know that it's going to be in project to project. So for Energy 7, without any details, I actually have no idea. I mean, it's going to benefit the network, but like the actual numbers, like what kind of ROI we're going to receive, like what kind of bump in the network value are we going to get from having Energy 7 as a partner and having them integrated into our platform, I don't have the information on that.
Bank, so
Yeah,
bank is not
yeah.
validating their project, so now BOScoin is doing it, so what's the return? You must have
Yeah.
an idea about that.
Yeah, well, I don't at this point because I just learned about Energy
That's all
7
it's
as a
about,
name.
You know, it's about public financing, so
Yep.
it's a valid question, I guess.
It's a valid question. I agree. I just don't have the details because it's not like we're going to do it tomorrow. It's going to be released. They said in November is when they're gonna try and roll that out, and so that information will be released to the public, to the community, before then.
Also, Congress will validate the
Yes,
margins.
because it's going to be integrated into the Testnet voting, right? So yeah, so that information will be released. Yeah, I'm only talking about it as a general idea of, hey, this is a real project that they're in development, and one of the first projects for public financing to kind of validate the governance and public financing as a real-world solution to problems that we're trying to address. So, but it's a totally valid question. Those are questions that I want to know.
You'll test, I guess, so.
Yeah, and I expect to get those answers myself in the next few months.
So in the future, will that be part of this evaluation process?
It will. Like that information would be part of how we would evaluate as a community whether or not we thought projects were going to be worth investing in.
It has to be
Because that's really what it is.
It has to be beneficial, or else what are we doing it for?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's got to pass a smell test, right? So you can say whatever, then you gotta, it doesn't make any sense.
I was just asking, you have to have a general idea about the financing and the returns on it before you start such a project like this, you know?
Yeah. It's initial stages, and I just found out about the project 2 days ago, so and that's, I expect to find that information out well before we release it, before we issue coins to finance it. Okay. And that was the kind of overview of the platform and the business strategy overview for public financing. And then we're going into key technology. What are we looking at for time? Oh, it's about an hour. Yeah, we can take a small break, and then we can go into the technology part. Okay, great. All right, so let's, 5-minute break? Is that good for everyone?